Welcome to PR Talk, sponsored by the PRSA of Oregon and part of the MPN, the Marketing Podcast Network. This is your host, Amy Rosenberg, founder of Veracity and author of A Modern Guide to Public Relations. Help other people find our podcast by subscribing, rating, giving us a review, or sharing on social media. Hi, everybody. I have Pat Welch here. She's the founder and CEO of Bully Welch. Hi, Pat.
Hi, how are you doing, Amy?
Good. Just so everybody knows, Bully Welch is a Pacific Northwest recruiting agency that I've actually had my eye on since I graduated college because it's been women owned and led for 37 years. And also, I've just kind of loved your marketing style, but that's another thing. But thanks for joining us today.
Thank you. Well, thank you for having me. This is fun.
Yeah. So just tell us about how you started Bully Welch and how you built your company.
Okay. Actually, I call myself an accidental entrepreneur because I never had the intention of starting a company. I never had the intention of doing anything with my career that I've done. It's sort of grown like Topsy and kind of evolved. I moved to Portland in 1975 from Boston. And I worked for an agency that was well-known called Murphy, Simmons and Stoll. I worked in Boston in the recruiting agency, and I fell into that career very accidentally too. But when I came here, I went to work for another company, and I enjoyed working for them very much. And I did direct hire placement of permanent candidates. We called them perm at the time. Now we say direct hire. But I did that, and I did that for several years. And in the course of work, I actually worked for them for 10 years. In the course of the time that I worked there, I went through a divorce, became a single mom, had an opportunity to stay home. My ex said, "Why don't you stay home with the kids?" It was the first recession that I'd been through. It was a big one. And he said, "You stay home with the kids, and I'll support you during this period." And so there's a couple of years I took off. And when I came back, Diane Boly had been hired by this company to do the same thing I was doing. And people were concerned that we would be very competitive and not like each other. And quite the contrary, we liked each other very much. And we found that working together as a team was much better than working independently. And so we combined our forces and we shared all of our commissions right from the get-go when we started working together. At some point, we were doing very, very well. The firm was primarily an executive search firm, but we did the office division. And at the time, I was dating a CPA and she was married to a tax attorney, and they felt that we should have a 401k or some kind of retirement plan to shelter some money. And we went to our boss to ask him if he would put that together. We didn't want him to pay for it. We just wanted to have a vehicle. And he came back to us and said, it would be it would cost me $1,300 to set up a plan like this, and you two are the only two that would be interested. And he had a pretty good-sized company, but he thought everyone else kind of wanted to live on their paycheck and wouldn't put away for the future. And so we made an offer to him to become independent contractors to him, and that's when Bully Welch was actually born that year. We did business under the auspices of this other company, Office Careers, division of Murphy, Simmons and Stoll, but we actually had a company called Bully Welch under the radar. And if we had wanted to start a company at that time, it would have been impossible for us to start that company because we had a very heavy non-compete at the time, and we were also limited by the fact that we were under the auspices of the Bureau of Labor. And in order to start an agency, because at that time, a lot of agencies were paid, the applicants paid for their own fees, and we were one of the few employer fee paid companies. But Bureau of Labor was very concerned about people being taken advantage of, et cetera. So they had very strict requirements. You had to pass an exam that was similar to a CPA exam. You had to have like 3 references from everyone you had worked for. And we both had a non-compete. So there was no way that our boss, we were their top producers, were going to let us out of our non-compete so that we could start our own company. We couldn't have done that. So it was almost impossible, except he created an avenue for that when he made us independent contractors to him instead of employees. This was no problem for either of us for 3 years. We have every intention of staying working for him forever, and I would still be working for him if things hadn't changed. But he decided to sell the company for some circumstances in his life. And the person that bought the company was someone that in no way would we want to work for. And we had become independent contractors, and we did not want to become employees of his. So we literally walked down the street with our receivables, rented some space at the Jackson Tower, and funded it out of the receivables that we had as independent contractors to our previous employer. And Bully Welch was born. As we were walking out the door, the secretary and receptionist who worked with us there said, "We're going with you," and they were our first two employees.
Oh, okay. Wait, there's a lot here. I just love this story. Okay, so
we were
first,
kicked into business. We did not choose to do that. We had no choice when the business was sold.
yeah, but I mean, okay, there's a lot here because, well, first of all, I love the story that you and Diane were not competitors. So, and it's a kind of showing you that women, we don't have to be competitors and we can work together. And I am in love with this story. I looked at your LinkedIn. You and Diane have been working together for, I want to say over 40 years.
And it would be over 40 years, but she retired 2 years ago. I bought Diane out. So now I'm 100% owner of Bully Welch because she was 8 years older than I was. Neither one of us ever probably would have left, but it was time. So she left 2 years ago, but we worked together until the last day. And we were absolutely equal 50-50 partners the whole way. We shared we made the same money for 40 years almost. So. Yeah.
And you're making probably more money because you're looking at her like not a competitor and you're partnering with her.
Oh, absolutely. We definitely made more money being partners. That was part of the thought process. When we first came to work together at the other company, it was very eat what you kill. And that the fear was that we wouldn't like each other because I had established a lot of clients prior to her joining. She joined that firm when I was on my leave. And there was a concern that now people who really liked working with me now liked working with Diane, maybe even better. And they were afraid we'd fight over the same clients. And that was how we came together to realize, you know what, we tracked our billings for the first year. And we realized that we were so even, and we were very even in terms of our talents and abilities. So what we decided to do was the clients never knew whether it was my candidate or Diane's candidate. They knew it was, but they didn't know that it didn't matter to me whether they hired her candidate or my candidate, because we were going to, whatever it was, we were going to split the commissions on that. So what we realized after a year was we probably made double the money, not competing against each other, me trying to get my candidate into a job and her trying to get her candidate into a job, but looking at who's the best candidate for this client, who's the best client for this candidate, and making the best matches we could. That was game-changing in this industry.
But then kind of going back, because I do want to talk about that, but I do want to talk about what's interesting about the fact that you two chose to be independent contractors and you had some agency over your life in a way where you're looking at you're saving money. And in order to do that, you're choosing to be contractors, which in a sense is a business of its own. And now contract work is so popular right now, but you were doing that so long ago. So I don't know what to say about that. But
it's funny because I hear what you're saying. And it's absolutely true. We have an enormous contract division at Bully Welch. In fact, it's half of our business now is direct hire and executive search retain. And the other half is contract work. And some are big enterprise contracts, like Nike is a big client of ours. We do all their professional contract placement and now doing some IT for them as well. But that's half our business. But when I say I was an independent contractor, it was really different. That was done just as a methodology for us to be able to have a retirement plan and whatever. We really didn't even think of ourselves as being in business those 3 years that we worked as independent contractors prior to leaving to go out into our own physical space down the street. We didn't think of ourselves as contractors. I never saw myself any differently when I was an employee for that company than when I was an independent contractor. The difference was, and this was what happened in that day, and we don't compensate people in the same way anymore, but in that day, we made commissions that were equivalent to, if we made a placement at the point that we were at, we basically split the commission. We made 50%. He made 50%. The client, my boss at the time. And when we became independent, but he provided all our advertising, our physical space, staff for us to work with, the rent, everything that, benefits, medical, dental, retirement, no retirement, medical and dental. When we became independent contractors, we just shifted the contract with him, but no one in the world saw that as being different, including the people that we worked with who were all employees. They didn't even know that this existed. But at that point, we took 60% and gave him 40%, and we paid our own benefits. So we did have a company at that point that was paying our medical, and that was but we were given certain opportunities to be under his auspices during that period. But I never saw myself as being any different. To be candid with you, I never felt any different when I was an employee to when I was a contractor to when I was a business owner. I've always done the same kind of worked collaboratively with the people that I work with. And it's kind of always felt the same to me. But you're right, we do have more agency over our life right now. That is true.
Well, and I want to talk about that, but also working collaboratively. So there's something about Bully Welch that I've always noticed, and it's like either your design or it's in the marketing, but I don't even know, I can't put my finger on what it is, honestly. And I wonder if it is that collaborative feeling that you have kind of infused into the company. And can you tell us what it's like to work there? And you have, do you have 30 employees now, or?
We have 50 employees in the office right now.
Okay.
We're close to that. It's pretty close. I mean, actually, the exact number I'm uncertain of because it changes, but it's closer to 50 than 30. And that's in the office. Those are the people that are my direct hire employees who work for Bully Welch Direct. Now, remember, we've got this whole contract division. We've got people working who I sign a paycheck for every week that are all over the city and other cities and other states, as a matter of fact. So those are also my employees. And under, I think of them in that way. They also are part of by the way, the first thing that Diane and I did when we went out on our own, so to speak, and when we started hiring our own employees, was we put a 401k and plan together so that everyone had what we wanted to have when we worked for another company. That was sort of the way we built the company. What is it that would make an employee want to work for us, and what would have made us want to stay as an employee with our past employer? And we looked at those things, and that's how we defined what our culture was going to be. And so not only did we have the 401k, but we wanted it to be very family friendly. We were both single moms at the time. And so if we could bring our kids to work or our dogs to work, these were really important things. And that the collaboration that Diane and I had, being equal partners, as we added people, it wasn't so much that they were all, they weren't actual partners of Bully Welch. We were the only two partners, but we worked with them as though they were our partners, and we did collaborate with them on all things. I think you're absolutely right. That is what defines us differently. Each of the different divisions we have work together. We have meetings every week where we go over all the orders we have. And so someone might be working in our payroll department, for example, and they're not a recruiter at all, but they know that we have an order for a paralegal at a law firm, and they say, "Oh, my cousin is a paralegal," and they can bring that person in, and they are compensated with a fee exactly as if they were a recruiter. So we have deputized every person in the company to be a recruiter or to be a salesperson. So anybody can bring in a client, anybody can bring in a candidate. We will work with them, and they will be compensated to do that. So it gives us some buy-in from our admin and support team as well, to feel like they're taking the company forward in the same way. I mean, what they do on a day-to-day basis is important too. If they've never brought a candidate or a client in, but they get to also feel that they can be an integral part of the actual guts of what we have to do to make a living and to bring revenue in.
And that might actually help them understand what you do every day, or what other people do.
100%. And what we like to do, and when you talk about collaboration, a lot of agencies, that even work together. Somebody brings in a candidate and somebody brings in the client. And most, when you deal with bonuses or commissions or anything that you're dealing with in terms of compensation, you're dividing that 50-50. Most things are split 50-50, or someone has the whole piece and they get 100%. We devised a methodology many years ago of having everything brought into quadrants, 4 quadrants, so that anyone can bring in a company, but we don't necessarily want them to continue to shepherd the accounts of that client. So they get 1 quadrant attributable to them, and that's a sales quadrant. The same would be with the recruiting quadrant. And then we have 2 other quadrants, the person that works with the candidate and the person that works with the client on the order. So typically, and I say this to you because that's how everyone can participate and collaborate together. Somebody who has a job that has nothing to do with placing HR people might know of a company that needs an HR person, and they can participate in that, and they turn that person over to our HR recruiter who works with the person. And then someone else might know someone who works in HR, but they are not a recruiter either. They may be in my marketing department. They introduce them to an HR recruiter who works with them. So we could conceivably be compensating 4 different people on a particular placement. And that makes it fun, and that's part of the collaboration.
Yeah, and everybody can bring something different to the table too. So you're specializing in one thing, not just trying to do everything for one person.
Exactly.
So, you were talking about how you, from the very beginning, were treating your employees. I consider that maybe employee-centric living, or an employee-centric mindset. And that was way before that was a thing. Like you were ahead of the game. So, but what are you seeing now? I mean, what do you see now with what's going on in the landscape for employers, and possibly what tips might you have for them? And then on the flip side, for people who are looking for jobs.
Oh boy, that's a lot.
I
This
know.
has been such a crazy, that is a lot. This is such a crazy period. Hearkening back, we are a very employee-centric company. I mean, literally, this was like, what do you want to do to make I want people to come to work and enjoy what they do. It's got to be fun. It's got to be productive. They have to have a sense of purpose and mission. And so we've sort of baked that into our cake. And we expect when people come that they will get involved in the community. We give them 2 weeks time off to volunteer in the community. That's an important part of our mission. We want them to bring their families to work. We know all their kids. We know their parents. We know their dogs. That's important to us. And that was important so early on. And I will take credit, not personally, but just as a company. I think we did set a tone as to being different than other companies early on. Now I see lots of companies doing those things, and I think it's wonderful. But I do think that we were early to say, it's not, I never called it life work balance. I called it life work integration. We let people bring their personal lives into the office. We let people you're on downtown, you can be on your Facebook. If I walk by your desk and you're on Facebook, I'm not going to feel like you're cheating me. By the same token, I know my employees, if it's 6 o'clock at night or 7 o'clock or 10 o'clock at night and they have to prep a candidate for an interview, they're on the phone with them then too. So we really believe in bring your personal life to the office. And you know what? If you need to work from home, work from home. We trust people to make work a fun and really a creative part of their life.
Well, and we're all adults, right? So we can figure it out. And I think that the workplace maybe hasn't been treating some of their employees like adults. And so now maybe they are, but I don't know, with the news about Twitter, like him trying to have people work 80 hours. I mean, that's kind of an overblown example, but I don't know. What do you say to the companies that are kind of behind the times still?
Well, this is such this question is very critical right now because things are shifting at the moment very dramatically, and I don't know what direction they're necessarily going in. I will tell you this: COVID changed so many things, okay, and it changed a perception of employees this whole remote work piece has made people reluctant to come back. A lot of people reluctant to come back to the workforce. The fact that the demographics shifted and so many baby boomers retired and the millennials or Gen X, whatever, are not filling in the gap. So there's less people. It is harder to find employees. During the last couple of years, it's been very, very much an employee market. It changed the way employees approached their work. And to be very candid with you, I think it's going to shift again because, we are looking at, look at the inflation, look at the recession that's coming. There will be a shift. And I think the last couple of years, I hate to say this, but I think employees got it's kind of full of themselves. And there was a lot of salaries. There was a lot of jockeying for salaries. There was a lot of counter offers when people got jobs, and that created more, there was a lot that changed. And I think employees felt that it's an employee game. I think that's going to shift again. And I just encourage everybody to just give everything they can to their work in the most positive way. And I mean, bringing them their full selves. I'm not saying kill yourself for your work, not at all. I want people to enjoy what they do, to engage. It's their job as much as their employers to engage them. And I think it's true that employers have to be more engaging. And during this last couple of years, oh my goodness, when there was such competition for employees, they had to really pull out all the stops. And so there's lots of things that are being offered in terms of flexibility and all of those pieces that really have worked for people. But I think there's going to be a shift. And I'm concerned about the quiet quitting that's been going on, because people who are not bringing their full 100% of themselves to their positions are going to find themselves being the first to be eliminated when the recession really does hit. And it will hit. I've been through 5 of them. Something's going to shift. We always try and get creative during those periods. And, but I just want to encourage candidates to be mindful of the fact that, it's not always going to be where they're in the driver's seat, and they have been more in the driver's seat during these last couple of years.
Yeah. And I'm a little worried about the kids coming out of college that aren't used to this employer-centric market. You're saying it's going to switch back to an employer-centric
I think it will.
Market.
I think there'll be a switch back. I think employers have made a tremendous amount of accommodations during this period, and we've had to. And I think some of them have been really good. I think this whole idea of remote work was, I have very mixed feelings about it, but it's not all bad. It's allowed for our business. It's been great in some ways because it's allowed us to tap into, I can fill an order for someone who was living in Podunk, Iowa, to fill a job in Portland. But that's dangerous for some employees in the Portland area, because if remote becomes too important, and we have people only want to work remote, if people get too used to remote in terms of employers, they don't need to draw from our local market. And I want that to continue to stay strong.
Yeah, I never thought of it. I was going to ask you just, what do you think about either hybrid or remote working, and if that is here to stay? But you're saying it's even a bigger question.
Well, there's a bigger question. I don't know whether it's here to stay or what. I think a hybrid probably is more here to stay. I think totally remote work, I think we've shown, here's my personal feeling, and I'm just going to give you my bias. I don't love the remote work. I was sad to work from home. We had, by the way, a very productive year or 2 years during COVID. We made more money than we made before. But I just think that was the nature. I don't know that it was because we were, certainly don't think it was because we were remote. I think we would have done better had we been together. That said, we did well. People were able to be productive. Companies saw that employees could be productive working remote. However, what we lose in terms of when you talk about collaboration, all the other things you get from work that build you as a person, and that then you bring that back to work, that gets lost with just remote work. And it was hard to bring people back to the office. If I had my druthers, they'd come back 5 days a week because I love being in the office with everybody. I had to, fight the trend of people not all wanting to do that. And so when we return to the office, we have a hybrid plan now, which I've accepted. We're all together Mondays and Thursdays, and a third day that they come into the office, and 2 days they work from home. I have a couple of employees who are completely remote because they live elsewhere. One's at the coast and one's deep into Washington. And it works. My preference is, again, to work together. I think we get so much more when we're together. But that's my personal bias.
Yeah, but you're showing flexibility, right? So I think that's what it is. Yeah, but I think that you can't be so hard in this day and age, because what about your employee who lives in Washington? I mean, they wouldn't be able to work with you. So
no, exactly. And we allow for that. I mean, she happens to be a top producer and has worked for us for I think it's 17 years now.
Yeah, so exactly.
No, I'm not going to change that. And the gal that's at the coast is a graphic artist in my marketing department. That works out fine. She moved there during COVID. She could afford to buy a great house at the coast. She couldn't buy in Portland. So the market's shifting and changing. I'm not prescient, and I don't have a crystal ball. I know that I always look at our company. I know we're going to survive. We've survived 5 recessions. We'll survive another one. We've never had to lay anybody off, which I'm really proud of, but we get real creative during difficult times. And I would say to employers, you got to get creative. You have to really be open to what's the market, what's happening, what's necessary right now. For recent college grads coming into the market, I encourage you to get out there and give everything you can to an internship or a temp job or whatever. They lead to great opportunities. And when you're there, make yourself known. Just don't do enough to get by. Look, do more. To me, that's how every person that I have seen that didn't have a clear path to where they were going. I mean, there's certain positions that you're going to get a job right away. Accounting is really strong right now. If you're coming out of college with an accounting degree, good for you. You probably already have a job before you get out of school. We're talking to people who are freshmen and sophomores in college in those areas and establishing relationships so we can figure out where the best place to put them when they graduate, or summer jobs for them, et cetera. But if you're a generalist like I was, it's not that easy to find a job coming out of school. Even in an employee market, it's not that easy to find the right situation. And I encourage people, everything that's ever happened to me has kind of happened accidentally by doing what was anything that was put in front of me. Okay, let's take a flyer at it, give it the absolute best you can and see what happens. And great things happen. The temps that we put in positions that get converted to great career opportunities are very surprising to most people, because they're people that wouldn't necessarily qualify for the job they applied for, but they go in doing something else. They bond to people, people like them and end up hiring them. And that's a great way to get in.
Yeah. I always say my first job was an internship that turned into a full-time job after a month at a PR firm. But so I don't know how much marketing industry placement you do, or design, not like home design, but graphic type design. Do you have any thoughts for people looking in those areas?
Well, here's the thing. We've worked, like, for example, we placed the first person at Wieden & Kennedy, but we worked their admin staff, their accounting staff. We never worked with their portfolio creatives. Okay. So I can't really speak to that. That's not an area that we've ever developed very strongly. Marketing in general, we have, though, very much so. We've got a lot of positions in the marketing area. We don't necessarily have a lot of positions for graphic artists. That comes in mostly through our temp department when it comes in. But just general marketing, that's a strong area. Now, it's an area that moves up and down as the recession happens. But marketing is a strong area for us right now. Do a lot of marketing in our executive search area for people who are very experienced in marketing. Coming right out of school in that arena, I say go get a temp job in a company and make them like you, and come in and develop into their marketing departments. That's how I've hired ours. We started with a 1-person marketing. I think we're a 4 or 5-person marketing department right now, and it's just evolved. Our most recent marketing hire was one of our Eli interns, and we've had the last 3-4 years we have had actually it's more than that. We've had emerging leader interns that we've gotten, people from underrepresented communities who've come in during their college careers to work with us as part-time intern. And on those intern jobs, we commit to really giving them an opportunity to learn things as well as to offer us something. They get to really, these are not, count paperclip type jobs to give someone a job. They're really to develop them. And all three of the interns that we have had, we've offered positions to or placed somewhere else. We've just hired our most recent intern to do our social media advertising.
Mm-hmm. So would you say that jobs for the marketing industry are in demand and strong right now, is what maybe I'm hearing?
I would say that we've, at this moment, and again, this moment is shifting. These are shifting sands because we all know what's happening with the economy and the things. It could be very different in a month. Right now, today, we have good marketing jobs at Bully Welch that if someone called me and has a great marketing background, we can place them. If they're a recent college graduate, we will probably place them more either through our temp arena in a contract job that could turn into a permanent job. And 40% of our contract jobs do get converted to direct hire jobs, by the way. Or our admin people will place them in more entry level positions. It's funny let me give you an example of what I think there's a more of a leapfrog approach sometimes in certain careers, and marketing can be one of them. Advertising marketing, because I told you we worked early on with Wieden Kennedy, very large, very in demand, sexy ad agency.
Yeah.
People used to come to us all the time saying, "Oh, I know you work with Wieden Kennedy. Can you get me into Wieden Kennedy? I'll do anything. I'll sweep floors. I'll do anything. I really want to be a copywriter. Can you get me a job there?" And what I would say at the time is that they do not want to hire someone who wants to be a copywriter to sweep their floors. They want to hire someone who wants to sweep their floors to sweep their floors. That's what they're asking me for. However, if you want to be a copywriter at Wieden Kennedy, it's a leapfrog approach to get to where you want to go. And so people have to be a little bit strategic. I said, you can go get a job as a receptionist or, your first job out of school. This is at Joe's Ball Bearings in Gresham. And you do a good job there and learn how to be a great receptionist for a year there, and then parlay that job to a receptionist job at an ad agency, and not Wieden Kennedy maybe, but maybe second tier ad agency. And with that job as a receptionist there, they let you do a little copywriting, and you grow there, and you become a junior copywriter because you get promoted at a secondary agency, and then you develop your craft, and then I'll place you at Wieden Kennedy as a copywriter. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So
And
I
I
think
like
you
that
have to
approach.
be,
Yeah.
you have to say, okay, I'm not going to necessarily go from A to Z in my first job. I'm going to build some skill sets that will take me to where I want to go and be more strategic about that.
Yeah. Doesn't happen overnight. So, one kind of segueing, what tips would you have for employers to combat quiet quitting? Or is it I'm kind of hearing you say it falls on the employee, which I kind of agree with. I think it's kind of
I
weird.
think it's interesting you say that because I think it's kind of both. I think both have a responsibility. I think it's important for the employers to engage their people, to really give them opportunities to buy in and enjoy and buy into their culture, enjoy the people they're working with, make their clients important to them. So I do think it's on the employer to help with engagement. But when you give someone the ability to engage and then they do just enough to get by, this is not going to bode well for when the tides turn. I just want to share that this is not the time to quiet quit, because you will very quickly see that you can't quiet quit, that you will be fired instead of quiet quitting. You will be late. You will be the first to go. The people who, and there's nothing, in my personal opinion, and maybe this is just a bias because of my age or whatever, but there's nothing joyful about giving less of yourself to a situation. There's nothing, it's enriching to do just enough to get by in any aspect of your life. So I don't think it's to anybody's advantage. I think people feel that, the quiet quitting a lot is, I think people feel sometimes they're working for employers that maybe you're demanding too much of them and not allowing them to have enough of a personal life. But I feel like so it's on employers to let their people feel they can have a life, but also have expectations that they're going to give, bring that life to give the most to their organization. I don't think it's to anybody's, right now people may be employers may be putting up with quiet quitting because the market was such that it was so difficult to replace people that they were willing to work with people who were giving less to their job than they could, but it won't continue, and it's not good for anybody.
Yeah. So I guess last question is, you did mention community commitment, and so two parts to that. First, I see you're on the board of Bridge Meadows and CASA.
Well, I just aged off of the CASA board. You have to, after 10 years, you age off of the board. You have to take a break. So I just aged off of the CASA board, but it's still a board. It's still an organization that's very near and dear to my heart.
Yeah, and you were on those for a while.
Yeah, and Bridge Meadows has been 10 years as well. So, yeah.
So, but what importance does community commitment serve to you? And then also the company, and could we look at that as a way to engage employees? So it's kind of a personal question, and then,
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, it's very meaningful to me. It's a big part of why I work. I like working personally. I like the people I work with. I feel like the work we do is meaningful. We find careers for people, jobs for people. I mean, doing this as long as I have, there's so many great stories that I feel that are so rewarding to me to hear what my employees have done for other people in the community. So that's a very important piece. But the mission of our company is also to serve our community and to serve the city of Portland. Portland's very important to me. I'm very committed to our offices downtown Portland. That's why I want to bring my people back into the office. The community is critically important. And so not to make it so that it's part of the importance to all of my employees. What we've done as a company is, as I said, to give them 2 weeks addition to their paid time off and their birthdays off and all the other things that you want to do to make people to add to someone's benefit package. We give them 2 weeks a year paid time off to volunteer in the community. That's encouraging them to, and it might be something that someone wasn't eager to do right away, and I'm being paid to do it. Let me try it, and then they find that it's rewarding for them too. We also encourage them to be on boards, to be our people earlier in their career, to go on ambassador boards and learn how to serve and learn how to give back to the community. In addition, though, and this is something I'm always looking at. It's a win-win for my company. It's a total win-win. When we've got people out there working in the community, they are meeting people. People are our product. They're bringing people into our office. They're encouraging people to know about Bully Welch. They are out there networking. They're sitting on boards. They're meeting other people who run companies and have orders for people. So it's not totally altruistic. It really does serve us as a company from a business perspective to have 50 people who are working for me be ambassadors out there to the community. They're ambassadors for us, but they're ambassadors for the organizations that they get excited about and want to volunteer for. They bring that back to our company and talk about that to their fellow employees. And so it's a win-win for the community, in my opinion. We also we've instituted that we match any dollars that they give to any community organizations. Bully Welch matches financially.
Wow. Oh, that's exciting. That's a big deal.
And that's new. That's relatively new, actually. We always, if someone was on a board, we always supported their board. But now we're saying that, it doesn't matter if you give $25 to, ABC, homeless organization or whatever, we will match that as well.
Uh-huh. Well, great. Well, thank you so much for your time. And, we just really honor, what you've done in the community. And the story about your partnership with Diane is very exciting for women, to continue working together and being strong together.
Well, thank you for having me, and it was a pleasure to be able to tell you a little bit about my company.
Thanks for listening. For more PR insight, be sure to check out Amy's book, A Modern Guide to Public Relations, at prtalk.co. Also, please subscribe, rate, or leave us a review.